The woman led the children still deeper into the forest, where they had never in their lives been before. Then a great fire was made again, and the mother said, "Just sit here, you children, and when you are tired, you may sleep a little. We are going into the forest to cut wood, and in the evening, when we are done, we will come and fetch you away." When it was noon, Gretel shared her piece of bread with Hansel, who had scattered his by the way. Then they fell asleep and evening passed, but no one came to the poor children. They did not awake until it was dark night, and Hansel comforted his little sister and said, "Just wait, Gretel, until the moon rises, and then we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have strewn about. They will show us our way home again." When the moon came, they set out, but they found no crumbs, for the many thousands of birds which fly about in the woods and fields had picked them all up. Hansel said to Gretel, "We shall soon find the way." But they did not find it. It was not their morning since they had left their father's house. They began to walk again, but they always came deeper into the forest, and if help did not come soon, they must die of hunger and weakness. When it was midday, they saw a beautiful snowbird sitting on a bough, which sang so delightful that they stood still and listened to it. And when its song was over, it spread its wings and fly away before them. And when they followed it until they reached a little house, on the roof of which it alighted. And when they approached the little house, they saw that it was built of bread and covered with cakes, but that the windows were of clear sugar. "We will set to work on that," said Hansel, "and have a good meal. I will eat a bit of the roof, and you, Gretel, can eat some of the window. It will taste sweet." Hansel reached up above and broke off a little of the roof to try how it tasted. And Gretel leaned against the window and nibbled at the pans. Then a soft voice cried from the parlor, "Nibble, nibble, now. Who is nibbling at my little house?" The children answered, the wind, the heaven-born wind," eating without disturbing themselves. Hansel, who liked the taste of the roof, tore down a great piece of it, and Gretel pushed out the whole of one round window pane, sat down and enjoyed herself with it. Suddenly the door opened and a woman as old as the hills, who supported herself on crutches, came creeping out. Hansel and Gretel were so terribly frightened that they let fall what they had in their hands. The old woman, however, nodded her head and said, "Oh, you dear children, who has brought you here? Do come in and stay with me. No harm shall happen to you." She took them both by the hand and led them into her little house. Then good food was set before them, milk and pancakes with sugar, apples and nuts. Afterwards, two pretty little beds were covered with clean white linen, and Hansel and Gretel lay down in them and thought they were in heaven. The old woman had only pretended to be so kind. She was in reality a wicked witch, who laid in wait for children and had only built the little house of bread in order to entice them there. When a child fell into her power, cooked and ate it, and that was a feast day with her. On the morning, she woke up before them and she seized Hansel with her sugared hand, carried him into a little stable and locked him in a grated door. Scream as he might, it would not help him. Then she went to Gretel, shook her till she awoke and cried, "Get up, lazy thing, fetch some water and cook something good for your brother. He is in the stable outside and is to be made fat. When he is fat, I will eat him." Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was all in vain, for she was forced to do what the wicked witch commanded. And now the best food was cooked for poor Hansel, but Gretel got nothing but crabshoes. Every morning, the woman crept to the little stable and cried, Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel if you will soon be fat. Hansel, however, stretched out a little bone to her, and the old woman, who had dim eyes, could not see it, and thought it was Hansel's finger, and was astonished that there was no way of finding him. When 4 weeks had gone by and Hansel still remained thin, she was seized with impatience and would not wait any longer. Now then, Gretel, she cried to the girl, stir yourself and bring some water. Let Hansel be fat or lean. Tomorrow I will kill him and cook him. Early in the morning, Gretel had to go out and hang up the cauldron with the water and lit the fire. We will bake first, said the old woman. I have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough. She pushed poor Gretel out to the oven, from which flames of fire were already darting. Creep in, said the witch, and see if properly heated, so that we can put the bread in. And once Gretel was inside, she intended to shut the oven and let her bake in it, and then she would eat her too. But Gretel saw what she had in mind and said, I do not know how I'm going to do it. How do I get in? Silly goose, said the old woman. The door is big enough. Just look, I can get myself in. And she crept up and thrust her head into the oven. Then Gretel gave her a push that drove her far into it, and shut the iron door, and fastened the bolt. Oh, then she began to howl quite horribly. But Gretel ran away, and the godless witch was miserably burned to death. Gretel, however, ran like lightning to Hansel, opened his little stable, and cried, Hansel, we are safe. The old witch is dead. They had no longer any need to fear. They went into the witch's house, and in every corner there stood chests full of pearls and jewels. These are far better than pebbles, said Hansel, and thrust into his pockets whatever could be gotten. And Gretel said, I too will take something home with me, and filled her pinafore full. But now we must go off, said Hansel, that we may get out of the witch's forest. When they had walked for 2 hours, they came to a great stretch of water. We cannot cross, said Hansel. I see no foot plank and no bridge. And there is also no ferry, answered Gretel, but a white duck is swimming there. If I ask her, she will help us over. Then she cried, little dog, does do see. Hansel and Gretel are waiting for tea. There's never a plank or bridge in sight. Take us across on thy back so wide. The dog came to them, and Hansel seated himself on its back, and told his sister to sit by him. No, replied Gretel, that will be too heavy for the little dog. She shall take us across one after another. The good little dog did so, and when they were once safely across and had walked for a short time, the forest seemed to be more and more familiar to them, and at length they saw from afar their father's house. Then they began to run, rushed into the parlor, and threw themselves round their father's neck. The man had not known one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest. The woman, however, was dead. Gretel emptied her pinafore until pearls and precious stones ran about the room, and Hansel drew one handful after another of his pocket to add to them. Then all anxiety was at an end, and they lived together in perfect happiness. The end.